I've spent the past 4 months studying the concepts that I'm about to explain to you in this video. Now, I'm going to warn you though that before you go any further, this is not going to be a fun or entertaining video at all because I don't have a bunch of fancy edits to keep your attention. So this is just a one-shot raw video of me talking over a Google document about stuff that will probably change the way that you think about life and business. So if you can't resist the urge to do something more stimulating for the next 30 minutes or 40 minutes or however long this video ends up being, then please just leave the video right now. Like, I'm being so for real, like look in the bottom corner, see how long this video is, and if you don't think that you're gonna finish it, just leave. Leave right now, okay? Not kidding. If you wanna go switch over to TikTok and doom scroll a bunch of short form brain rot content, then there's nothing I can do to stop you. But if you're actually serious about learning these things about life, business, ways to get what you want and achieve your goals, then the two concepts I'm going to cover in this video are going to help you get there. But you have to understand them both in order to get the full effect. It's kind of like peanut butter and jelly. They kind of like merge and you can't really have one without the other. They complement each other. Now, I just also want to be clear before we get into it that I'm standing on the shoulders of business magnates like Charlie Morgan and Hermosi. This is just me putting my own little twist on these ideas because I've actually implemented it. And when I applied this stuff, it literally changed my entire paradigm. So I'm in no way claiming to be like the founder of these ideas or anything. So I just wanted to put that out there. But without further ado, if you're in it for the next however long this video is, let's get into it. The first pillar, I guess you could call, is quantum iteration. So welcome to quantum iteration. And in this section, I'm going to show you how to use scientific principles to predictably improve your business and your life, basically. A lot of this is focused on business, but you can kind of take these ideas and apply them to life also. So business is a science and iteration is gradual change over time. Now you might be thinking, why in the world do I need to know this stuff? So let me give you a little analogy here. If you've ever saw the movie Karate Kid, you know, where you've got Daniel LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi, and, you know, Daniel wants to learn how to do karate. So Mr. Miyagi's his mentor, and Mr. Miyagi's got him doing wax on, wax off. He's, you know, cleaning his cars. He's doing a bunch of random stuff that doesn't seem like it really applies to karate. And then it all kind of comes, it's been a couple years since I watched the movie, but basically, you know, Daniel's kind of like, hey, I wanted to learn karate and you're just making me do a bunch of chores. And then Mr. Miyagi kind of tells him like, all right, well, show me wax on, wax off. And then they kind of like get into this little spar or whatever from I remember. And it's at that point that, you know, Daniel realizes that all of the things that he's been doing, the wax on, wax off, those were all the fundamentals of the larger skill, which is karate. So I wanted to use that analogy to explain that is exactly what this video is. It's things that you don't really think that you need to know about business and life, but it's the wax on, wax off of life. I guess I'll put it that way. I know that's a big expectation to live up to, but that's how confident I am in this stuff. So progress happens too slow to notice, but too fast to ignore. And we're going to slowly build our way up to our point here. So trust me, there's a reason I have this stuff set up. I've spent like the past week building out this Google document. So progress happens too slow to notice, but too fast to ignore. So you think of phones like, or you think of things like the iPhone, you think of, you know, humans, cars. My point is, if you look at the iPhone, like what I've got right here, like this is an iPhone 12 mini. So if I compare it to like the newest, latest, and greatest thing, you know, an iPhone 18 or whatever they have out nowadays, it's probably a pretty big difference because, you know, it's another whatever, like 6 models advanced. But if you compare an iPhone 12 to an iPhone 13 or an iPhone 12 to an iPhone 11, the iteration that, you know, Apple did for one model, it probably isn't like that much to really notice. But when you look at it on a long time horizon, it's very, very big. So, you know, same things with humans. You know, you look at humans today, you look at humans 100 years ago, probably not a massive difference. But you look at humans today versus 1,000 years ago, and it's basically a massive difference. Like just everything from body structure to just everything. Like very different. Same thing with cars. If you look at a vehicle today, say a 2025 F-150, and you compare it to a 2024 F-150, well, there probably isn't that much of a difference. A couple little things maybe, but like 1 year doesn't make that much of a difference. But if you look at a 2025 F-150 and a truck from the 90s or the 80s or the 70s, it's a massive difference. So that's the point that I'm trying to make with this, that progress happens too slow to notice on a short time frame, but too fast to ignore. So the point that I'm trying to kind of get at here is that when you apply the things I'm about to talk about, you won't realize it day to day or maybe even week to week, but it's more over a long time horizon that makes the difference. So that was the whole point of that analogy. Now the next thing here is survival of the fittest isn't who can do more push-ups or who can bench press 225 or things like that. Like the whole idea of survival of the fittest, it gets kind of like warped from its actual meaning in business, at least, which is in business, the survival of the fittest is whoever is best suited for their environment. And the environment is what sets the conditions for survival. So this picture does a perfect job at explaining exactly what I mean. So you look at, in both of these examples, you have white mice and you have black mice. Now, when they're just out on the rocks, on a normal day, the black mice blend in really well and the white mice really stand out. So, if you're imagining they're trying to hide from predators and stuff, if there's a hawk out or, coyote or whatever is going to get them, the white ones have a pretty big disadvantage because they're probably going to get picked off a lot easier. But it kind of is what it is because that's the environment that they're in. Well, then all of a sudden, later that day, it snows. Now who has the advantage? The white mice are way better adapted to that environment, and now the black mice stand out like a sore thumb, and the black mice are going to be the ones who get predated upon, and the hawks are going to be able to spot them way easier and things like that. So the point that I'm trying to make here is your business is the mouse, and the environment, your business environment, the market, whatever industry you're in, that is basically like the environment, the weather. Hopefully you understand the point that I'm trying to make there. So really it boils down to you can either change your traits or you can change your environment. It cannot be any other way. And it just literally cannot be other way. Like if you think about it, you can either change the traits, so you have black mice or white mice, or you can change the environment, snow or rocks. That is it. Okay, so and now I'm trying to relate this back to business here. You can either change your traits, which would be certain components of your business, which we'll get into that later about what exactly the components are, or you can change your environment, which would be like the market that you're serving. That's it, okay? And if the environment changes, then you might have to change some variables in order to survive. So, for example, in nature, if you got these black mice and white mice, well, if all of a sudden, this becomes a snowy environment all the time, nature will do natural selection. And these black mice probably won't survive very long because, they're going to get eaten by things. And the white mice will survive, which means that they will reproduce more and create more white mice. And the black mice will reproduce less, so there'll be less black mice. And when you look at it over hundreds of years or thousands of years, then all of a sudden, most of the mice are going to be white because that's the traits that are best suited for that environment. And then vice versa if it's the rocky environment. But the difference between business and nature is it could take hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of years for nature to kind of randomly shuffle these variables to figure out, which organism is best suited for the environment. And the environment changes sometimes. And then it takes, decades or hundreds of years or thousands of years again to, recombine the variables to make the animal suited again. But with business, you don't have to wait hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of years to make changes. You can adjust very, very quickly, which is why we don't have to, wait a million years to build a business. So anyways, I hope you get my point with that. But organisms, essentially, building on what we just talked about with the mice, organisms are a combination of components, and those components are made up of smaller components, which are determined by the DNA. So you see, like, we have a fish here, and I'm not saying that, everything's perfectly accurate. This is just an image that I pulled off the internet, but you've got these components of a fish. So you say fish, but really fish is made up of the mouth, the eye, the nostril, the dorsal fin, the pectoral fin, the caudal fin, all these different components when you say fish. So it's kind of like when you say business, well, your business is made up of a bunch of smaller components. And if you want to change the fish, you must first decide what part of it you want to change. So if you're like, I want to change the head of this fish. Well, the head is made up of the eyes, the mouth, the nostril, the gill plate. There's all these components. So what part do you want to change? And then you could change the eye. That's part of the head. Now there's also subcomponents of the eye. There's the, there's the color of the eye that you could change, or the shape of the eye you could change. So you see what my point here is there's smaller components. Yeah, hopefully you get my point there. Now, this is where things start getting a little bit more in depth. So hopefully you're following along to what I'm building up to here. But this is the fish in its environment, and these are the variables that it is made up of. So you have the fish, you have the environment, the fish is living in the environment, and the fish is made up of these variables. Now we have level 1 variables, level 2 variables, and this here should say level 3 variables, but hopefully you get the point. And then you have the DNA information and the variance. So let me do my best to explain this in simple terms here. So back to my point up here, if you wanted to change something about the fish, like the head or the mid-body or the lower body or whatever, you would look at this and you would say, okay, I want to change the head. And then you see that the head is made up of things like the eyes, the mouth. So the head, as you can see, is a level 1 variable. And the level 1 variable is made up of smaller level 2 variables, which would be like the eye and the mouth. And then those level 2 variables are made up of even smaller level 3 variables. So for the eye, you have the pupil, you have the color of the eye. For the mouth, you have the jaw, you have the teeth. So those are the level 3 variables. And then once you get any smaller than that, it basically just goes into DNA. As you can see at the bottom, it's just DNA information. But the key thing here to pay attention to is there's variance to this DNA information. And I promise I'm getting to a point here, so stick with me. But at the very bottom, all these different color strands of DNA are variants that, like I said, nature would take a very long time to have to shuffle and figure out how to, change the pupil of this fish. Then the fish would have to, propagate from generation to generation and, reproduce, and it would take a really long time to figure it out. But with business, you can plug things in way faster. So I started with this fish so that you could understand what I mean with the way that things are laid out with DNA and variance and, these different level 1, level 2, level 3 variables. But the whole point I'm showing you this, and a fish doesn't really matter for business, but it was so that you could understand this next diagram here, which is where we talk about these actual business traits, okay? Now, your business is a living organism with traits and DNA. At least that's how you have to think about it, because obviously it's not literally a living organism. But if you treat your business like it is one, then this will make a lot more sense. So in business, the market is the environment, and your ideas are the variation. So your ideas are these little variants here. And humans can shuffle variables way faster than nature, like I talked about earlier. So in order to change your business's genetic code, you could combine my ideas and experience with your ideas and experience, which creates a new version of business. So in a way, it's kind of like a business baby in the sense that our two businesses would be reproducing to create a new form of business, which I know that's a little bit of a weird abstraction, but hopefully you understand the point that I'm trying to make. And then businesses would reproduce the same way that, organisms in nature reproduce. So, if you take my ideas, combine them with your experience, and then all of a sudden you get a good outcome in your business, then other people in your market would start looking at, hey, look at what this guy's doing. And then they would combine, your idea with their experience, and then it would create a new variant in their business. And that's just how, the world evolves. Like, that's literally just how it works. So I know this stuff is starting to seem really, really weird, but you have to learn to think neurodivergently, okay? Meaning your brain has to function in a way that is not considered typical or normal, which is probably what you're thinking right now. You're probably like, what in the world why am I still watching this video? Well, remember at the beginning I told you, stick it out with me. It will make sense by the end. That's why this stuff is really weird, okay? Anyways, so back to the point here. Now, this is kind of the point that I was building up to for the past 15 minutes or whatever. This is all you have to do to make your business successful is get all of these little things right. Okay? That's it. That's all you have to do. So, we have the business, you have the niche, you have the problem, you have all of these, level 1 variables, which would be, the offer, your advertising process, your sales process, your delivery process, all of these level 1 variables of the business. And then you take, a component of your advertising process might be, social media content. And then a level 3 variable off of that could be Facebook and Instagram and, X and YouTube. And there's all of these little variables, okay? There's all of these little variables. And I encourage you to actually make this, draw it out on a piece of paper, do it on your computer, whatever, make this for your business to actually look at, okay, what is my business made up of? What is the genetic code of my business? And when I did it, it gave me so much more clarity. Basically, all you do is you're constantly searching for, at the bottom here, where you see critical information variants, all of these different color strands of DNA. So for example, if you watch a video like this and it gives you an idea, that would be like you picking up a strand of DNA out of this critical information variance, and then you plug it into the DNA of your business. And then by changing the DNA of your business, you alter a level 3 variable. And by altering a level 3 variable, you are altering a level 2 variable. And by altering a level 2 variable, you change a level 1, which in turn actually changes the business. So this is how you drive change over time and figure out what actually works and what doesn't. So a good point here is if your car has no spark plugs, you can't go anywhere. Nothing else matters, okay? It doesn't matter how many horsepower your engine has, how good a condition the body's in, how much, anything about the car, how awesome your tires are, none of it matters. If you have no spark plugs, you cannot go anywhere, okay? So I'm not a mechanic, I'm just using that to drive my point home. So my point is you can have all of these variables, right, for your business, and if one of them is off, it could be, holding you back. So that is the point that I'm trying to make here, is all of these little things have to be right. But instead of thinking about, trying to build a business, you need to think of yourself as a scientist running an experiment. Okay, that is what you are. You're not trying to build a business here. You're just running experiments to try to figure out what works and what doesn't. All right. Now I've talked about, finding critical information, swapping it out for the DNA to change the variables of your business, but you cannot just screw around with your business DNA, just randomly swapping variables. You're going to just burn the thing to the ground, and you might make it worse than where you're even at right now. So there's a process to do this. And the process for that is the Scientific Method Business Edition. So that's how you do it. So introducing the Scientific Method Business Edition. Now, the scientific method has helped people do things way, way harder than build a business. I can promise you that. It has allowed for massive advancements in humanity, from everything from modern medicine to a bunch of other stuff. So if it can do that, it can help you grow your business. And essentially, the way that I look at it is you just have knowledge in your mind. Okay, you have this knowledge, you pick it up from other places or whatever. So think of these colorful variants up here. This is stuff you're picking off, whether you're talking to somebody in person, watching a video online, whatever it is. So then you take that knowledge and you create a hypothesis. So maybe you think of a new way to advertise, and you say, I think it'll work. So then you test the hypothesis, meaning you actually have to put it out into the market, figure out if it actually works or not. You observe the results and you see, okay, were these results, did they fall within KPI? which is just key performance indicator, meaning like, what is the industry standard, or like what was the benchmark? What were you hoping to have happen? So then you observe the results and form your conclusion. That's it. Did it work or did it not? And if it worked well and you like the results it gave you, then guess what? It runs up the chain of events here and you plug it in and it swaps out one of the variables. And now that becomes the new baseline. But if it doesn't work, then you can iterate your hypothesis, bring it back up, test it again, observe the results again, and just keep iterating until you get a result you want. So this is huge. This is how you drive change. Like, you need to understand this. These are all the components of your business. The way that you change components of your business is by starting at the bottom and working up. And the way that you do that is by using the scientific method, which is take information, create a hypothesis, test the hypothesis, observe the results, and form a conclusion. Okay? That is how you drive change. But how do we actually use the scientific method to build the business? Like, what purpose is it serving in order to, we go in and make those changes? Well, we use it to iterate level 3 variables to get a level 2 variable that falls within KPI. Like I just said, KPI is key performance indicator. So, a good way to think about this is like when you go to the doctor and they take your temperature. If your temperature is supposed to be 98.6 or 96.8, I always get it mixed up if it's 96.8 or 98.6. It's one or the two. But if you know that that's KPI, then when you go to the doctor and they take your temperature and it's 102, they know that you're out of KPI. There's something wrong because baseline is, that 98.6 or whatever. So it's the same thing with business. If you don't know where you're supposed to be at or what the industry standard or benchmark is, you aren't going to know if your results are good or not. So if your, conversion rate is, 5%, like, how do you know if that's good or not? Until you look up and you find that it's probably somewhere between 30 to 40% is industry standard. So then you know where to aim is my point, okay? So that is it. You use this scientific method to iterate level 3 variables. And when you change these level 3 variables, it changes a level 2 variable. And then you get that to fall within KPI. That's it. That's literally it, okay? Now, think about it like this, all right? So, you've got your box here, your box is here, and V1 just stands for version 1, okay? So imagine we're just grabbing one of these variables up here and we're pulling it down. This is just getting into the really fine, gritty detail. But basically, you've got the star at the top, which is your goal of where you want to go. You've got fire at the bottom, which is where you don't want to go. And then in the middle, you have baseline, which is where you're at right now. So now you can see if you test a new hypothesis, it either moves you closer towards your goal, which is progress, or further away from where you're currently at, which is regress. So you constantly just keep swapping out hypotheses to get your baseline closer and closer towards your goal, which is probably going to be somewhere within KPI. So for example, if your baseline, currently if you're at a 5% conversion rate and your goal is a 30% conversion rate, and you come up with a hypothesis, you insert it into your business variables here, and you start testing it, then it takes you from 5% to 10%. Well, great, that's progress. Now you move your baseline to 10%. But you're not quite to your goal yet of 30%. You see what I'm saying? So then that would be version 2 of your hypothesis. And it might take you till version 10, it might take you till version 110 to get that variable to meet KPI, okay? I know that this is really, really weird stuff here, but I'm telling you, this is how you build this entire system. I've spent the past 4 months doing this, so trust me, it works. If the whole thing here, what I've just talked about between, the mice and, the way nature shuffles the variables and the way that your business is the exact same thing, having all these different variables. If this stuff is not a light bulb moment for you, then I don't know what will be. This is how you win. This is how you win at anything, like business, things in life, okay? Because you can apply it to a lot of things in life. I know this is mainly for business and stuff, but if you think about, your marriage, well, your wife would be the environment. And then level 1 variables could be, assuming you have a biblical view on what husbandry should look like, It could be, you know, protect, provide, and pursue. Could be your level 1 variables. Then the level 2 variables could be, you know, maybe like the house that you're living in, like that could be under provide. So provide. So then that's a level 1 variable. A level 2 variable would be the house you live in. You know, if you provide the house that you live in. And then within that house, you have level 3 variables of things. And then same thing with protect, same thing with pursue. There's levels to everything. And when you get this idea, you just get it. Okay? Like you might have to go through and watch this video back like a couple of times. And I know you might not like that idea because you know, you think you're just going to understand everything in the first video, but I'm not even kidding you. Like when I was learning this information, I literally listened to this stuff and we rewatched like a 6-hour course, probably 20, 25, maybe 30 different times. So it's not something that I just like watched once, then rewatched and called it good. I'm talking watching it 20 to 30 times to fully understand it, okay? And I'm not saying you have to watch this video 20 to 30 times, but the idea behind it is the odds of you actually getting this on the first go around are honestly pretty low. So you might have to listen to it a couple times is all I'm saying, all right? Now, like, just imagine if you understand this stuff and your competition doesn't. Like, just imagine that. Like, my goodness, you're just going to mog them to absolute oblivion because when you get this stuff, it allows you to just have such a huge competitive advantage because it's like you're looking at your business from an aerial view and like seeing the complete roadmap to get what you want. And if your competition isn't looking at it like that, they're just like, you know, in the maze trying to figure it out, like stuff's hitting them in the face. Like, just trust me, it is worth understanding this stuff. And I know because this is exactly how I figured out what works for Captain Skool. Like I said, I've been spending the past 4 months studying this stuff and swapping out variables to try to hit KPI. And like, this is literally how I did it. I created a spreadsheet with variables like this, started, you know, tracking all my metrics to see, okay, what was the problem? What's my conversion rate? What's my appointment booking rate? What's my sales call show rate? All of these things. And then I started tweaking level 3 variables to help me hit KPI, okay, until I reached my goal, which just happened last week. So now I know, okay, awesome. In this environment, with the current state of the fishing charter economy, the variables I have designed for my business will work and get everything in the business to fall within KPI. That's now, in a couple years, the environment might change. You know, charter captains' desires and wants and needs might evolve, and I might have to tweak variables because, like I said up here, if the environment changes, you might have to change some variables to survive. Okay, so I'm not just saying once you figure it out, you're done forever. But yeah, that's kind of like the entire point that I am trying to make here. Okay, I'm not just like guessing. I literally actually did this stuff. So yeah, that is quantum iteration in a nutshell. I hope this changed the way that you look at your business forever, basically. So yeah, now it's good to know all this stuff, but this is the peanut butter, and what I'm about to talk to is the jelly in order to make your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, okay? You have to marry these two things together in order to get the full results. Because if you know all this stuff, but you don't do anything or take any action, like you can't just theory craft this business on a spreadsheet and it'll just magically work. Like, that's not how it works. You actually have to, you know, go through some pain and suffering to figure this stuff out, and it's not going to be easy. Which brings us to trial by fire. All right, which this was like when I learned this stuff from Charlie Morgan, this absolutely just changed it. This is probably one of the most impactful videos I've ever, you know, consumed, or courses that I've ever consumed. All right, and yeah, so I put my little twist on it here to make things hopefully a little bit easier for you to understand. So anyways, welcome to Trial by Fire. Growth is pain and success is suffering, okay? This is something, like, this is a saying that you need to like get in your head and like remember it, like really, really remember, okay? Growth is pain and success is suffering, okay? You have to know this stuff. And on your way towards achieving what you want, you are going to suffer. Like, it is going to be brutally, brutally hard, all right? Like swapping out all these variables, doing all these tests using the scientific method. It sounds all good when we theory craft it, but when you actually go to implement it, it is going to suck, okay? It's going to be awful. Now, an interesting thing is, people talk all this about passion and, follow your passion. And especially with, fishing charter captains and stuff, it's all like, fishing is their passion, so they do it. Well, the interesting thing is passion is rooted from the Latin term passio, which loosely transfers, the way that I understand it, it loosely transfers to suffering. So if passion means suffering, it's referring to the, without going into too much depth here, it's referring to, passio refers to the suffering of Christ. It's like the crucifixion story of it. So, you could say that, Jesus was passionate and he was willing to suffer for the thing that he was passionate for. So anyways, without going on too much of a rabbit hole, following your passion does not mean doing what you love, okay? Following your passion does not mean doing what you love. It means finding something that you love enough that it's worth suffering for, okay? Let me say that again. Following your passion does not mean doing what you love. It means finding something that you love enough that it is worth suffering for. And how much we love something is measured by how much we're willing to suffer for it, okay? Like, get that idea through your skull, okay? Now, what's interesting is, how can you love something, but if you do it a lot, you would hate it? Like, it's a fair question to ask. Like, I like ice cream, but I wouldn't want it, after every meal, every day. Like, it would get old. I love ice cream, but I wouldn't want it that much. I like pizza, but I wouldn't want it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. I wouldn't. And you might say like, oh yeah, I would. Try it. And let me know after having pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day for 2 weeks. You're gonna be dying for some fruits and other food, okay? Like, believe me. Now, the fact that it is rare is why we love things, okay? Which is a crazy thought, which means that, in order for your passion to stay rare, it means that you will spend the vast majority of your time not doing it, which is crazy. It's ridiculous. So at the end of the day, you want moments, you want good days, not a never-ending state of just always being in this, euphoria of doing what you love, because eventually you'd adapt and you'd get bored, okay? You see it all the time. It happens all the time. People with money or whatever, they start getting money, then they, they just keep upgrading cars, they keep, inflating their lifestyle, newer, better, bigger house, more toys, like, because all of a sudden that thing that you thought would be stimulating enough isn't, you get bored, and it just becomes baseline, and you just having to keep raising your standards, basically. So yeah, just understanding that is huge. So back to the whole passion thing, unless you get really good at your passion, you're probably gonna have to do things that you like less in order to pay your bills. And if by some chance you do get good at your passion, then literally like 95% of your time will not be going toward the thing that you love, but instead it'll be going toward the thing that you have to do in order to support the thing that you love, which you may indeed not love, okay? Like, I'll drive an example home of when I realized this. So, back when I was 18 or whatever, since I like being on the water fishing so much, I was like, oh, if that's what I do with all my time, then life will be great. But the year I started my charter business was one of the most challenging that I can remember, because I had to do so much stuff that wasn't fishing, okay? Like, it's all the advertising, it's the business stuff, it's setting up the LLC, it's blah, 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 all this stuff you didn't realize. And it literally is like a huge majority is doing things you don't love so that you can spend like the 5% of the time doing the thing you love. It's ridiculous, okay? Plus, this was huge. Plus, the 5% of your passion, or the thing that you say you love, will only be there if your passion doesn't change, which it probably will. Which means that a vast majority of your life, you will not be doing things you're passionate about. And in the very, very tiny instance you are, it's likely short-lived. Like, that's just the way it goes, okay? It just, yeah, I'm at a loss for words, because that is so monumental to like understand that stuff. Now, ask yourself this: do you really want an easy life? Do you want an easy life? Some people might say yes, but if you actually had, like if I give you a cheat code to play a game and get max everything to win every single time, you probably wouldn't even play because to some degree you enjoy the challenge, okay? Like think about it like with basketball or something. Like assuming that you have an average skill level for playing basketball. You know, if you went out and played against a 5-year-old and you were just dunking on them the whole time and you won the game 50-0, like you're playing life on easy mode. Like it probably just isn't even that fun with you because there's no challenge. Like it just, like people say they want this easy stuff, but like really, you know, you want, like, what good is it to win if you don't have an opponent? Okay. Now, to my point, be just life is hard and life sucks. But like, I'm not saying it from like a, you know, depressed state here. I'm gonna get to my point here. So listen to this, okay? Being a business owner is hard. Being an employee is hard. Being single is hard. Being in a relationship is hard. Living somewhere hot sucks. Living somewhere cold sucks. Having a house in 2 different states to switch back and forth from, depending on the season and the time of year from, sucks. Because you have these 2 different houses to manage. If you're in Florida, you've got this hurricane to worry about. Insurance is super high. You've got 2 places to be. Your mind's wondering, like, what's going on back here? There's suffering down every path. Suffering is a fixed cost. And the fact that people look at their life and think that because they are suffering, they must need to change something so they no longer suffer is ludicrous, okay? Because change will also cause suffering. And it's the fact that you think there's a problem with suffering that's causing you even more suffering. It's like this death spiral of suffering. And in your head right now, I just want you to think of the options in your life that you're going to have to decide on pretty soon. Whether it's, you know, moving to a new place, whether it's pursuing a relationship, whether it's starting a business, giving up the business, whatever it is. Like you can probably think of 2 or 3 big life decisions you're going to have to make within the next 6 months to a year. Now, what if I told you that you will suffer the same down every path? Okay, there is no easy path. Stop thinking that there's an easy path. Because over here, you'll suffer with regret more. And then over there, you'll suffer more with difficulty. Over there, with this choice, you'll suffer more with something else. It just is what it is, all right? So at the end of the day, just don't try to be passionate about what you do. Instead, try to be passionate about why you do it, because that's internal. The external things are treats. They're little moments. They're that 5%, but they can't be the requirements, okay? And self-servingness cannot be the goal, okay? Because you will satisfy your own needs fairly quickly. And I kind of fell into this trap for a while where, you know, I was just like, you know, do it just for, you know, self-servingness. And yeah, you'll just meet your needs quickly, and then it's very, very empty from there. So that's why you have to be passionate about why you do it, not just like for selfish reasons. And a really good way to, you know, figure this out is just talk to your 85-year-old self. You know, I've done this a lot of times over the past few years. Just like, this is also a good little indicator of if you're doing things for instant gratification. Because if you talk to your 85-year-old self and you're like, you know, hey, 85-year-old self, should I do this? Or, you know, are we going to regret this later? It gives you a completely different paradigm on things that might serve you well in the moment, but you know probably won't serve you well in the future. And it just changes your decision-making process, all right? Now, throughout all this, just give yourself permission to suffer and grow as a result of that suffering. Like, stop trying to avoid the pain. And people who say that it's not about the journey, you know, or, they say it's about the journey, not the destination. Well, they're wrong. It is about the destination because you need to be excited about where you're going in order to tolerate the pain of the journey, all right? And this will really change things for you. If you think back to your last big life event, all right, whatever it was. Maybe you got married, maybe you had a kid, maybe you know, got a new car, got a new house, whatever, okay? You might have had a short window of increased subjective well-being where you were happy and thought it was great. And then after a while, you return back to baseline. It's really crazy, okay? And this goes big life event both ways. You know, married, have kids, house, car, whatever. Also, you know, death of a loved one, you know, losing your job, you know, bad things, you always just kind of return to baseline. Like, it's really weird, but like, yeah, you will just return to baseline. And your baseline, yeah, I'm not going to go too far on that, but hopefully you get what I mean. And the thing is you have to take a risk either way. All right, there is no safe path, there is no pain-free route. You have to take a risk, and there's no promise that the path you're on is going to work or even be worth it. But you're forced to take a risk. So to prove my point, you might be thinking like, "Oh no, if I, do this safe thing, it is risk-free." No, because investing is risky because you could lose some of your money. All right, so what's the alternative? We just hold it all in cash in the bank? Well, I'm not even going to go down the road of like, oh, well, technically a bank could fail. Like, we're not getting that doomsday scenario. I'm just saying keeping your bank in a savings account or keeping your money in a savings account, that is also risky. Not investing is risky because inflation will erode your savings. Like, this is not a controversial thing. Like, look at the depreciation of the US dollar. It's went down like 97% over the past 100 years or something. Like, that is a guaranteed way to lose your money over a long enough time frame. So investing is risky. Saving your money in cash in the bank is risky. You can't win. You cannot win. Being in a relationship is risky because things might not work out. You might get married and have kids, and then you get divorced and you lose 50% of your money, and you have to have shared custody of your kids, and like, my goodness, that would be awful. All right, so what's the alternative? I guess we'll just be single for our whole life. Well, guess what? Being single is also risky because, what if you get to the end of your life and you die alone with no family? Like, that sounds kind of risky and like it might suck. So the point is, everything sucks sometimes and everything is great sometimes. Okay? We think we work because the suffering will stop, or we work because we think the suffering will stop eventually. But if you can accept suffering as the toll you pay on every path, no matter what, then at least you get to pick where you go. And I think God is more proud of us, and I believe in God. You can say God, the universe, whatever you believe in. But I think God is more proud when I do things that are hard and require more willpower rather than not even wanting it to begin with. And I was having a good talk the other day with somebody, and people give things up for religious reasons like alcohol or smoking or things like that. And I'm like, well, like, I've looked at people who are giving up alcohol and they're struggling so much, but they're like doing it to become a better, person, like in the eyes of God and stuff. And I'm like, man, like, I've never had alcohol in my life. Like, I'm 22 years old, alcohol has never touched my lips. I'm not saying that as a flex, I'm just saying it as a fact. Same thing with smoking. I've never smoked before. So I'm like, wow, wouldn't God be more proud of me, the fact that I've never even had a drop of alcohol on my tongue, or that I've never, smoked, or that I've never, done a, something else that might be, bad biblically? And the answer is kind of no, because in a way, you're supposed to suffer. Like, the fact that you're giving up something that you want to do and that's hard and you have to use your willpower, like, success is like, pain is the path. Just pain is the path, and you're supposed to, things are supposed to be hard. And I'd be curious to know if you agree with me, biblically. But anyways, at the end of the day, really, like, what it comes down to is, if you can comfortably provide for yourself and for your family, if you have one, you've already won. Like, there's diminishing returns after that, I feel like. And obviously, I'm not some like, high level, like, multimillionaire entrepreneur or anything. I've noticed it on a very small scale. It's just like, once you kind of got, a safety net in your bank account, you've got some investments that are, a big cushion, you've got some solid income to be able to just kind of buy, whatever you want within reason, like, meaning, you can just kind of go out to dinner and order an appetizer and get, not the cheapest thing on the menu, and you just kind of, like, you don't really worry about gas prices that much. Like, I'm not saying you're going out being a baller, going on a bunch of, flying private, doing a bunch of things like that, but it's like, my point is, at a certain point, like, you're kind of like coasting, and like, at that point, like, you've already kind of won if you can provide for yourself and your family, if you have one. Like, at least in my eyes. Like, a lot of people will aspire to have more, and they got to go, achieve all this stuff just to figure it out. But yeah, anyways, that's at least my look on it. Now, This brings us to kind of my next point, which is you're always maxing for something. And there's this new terminology kind of floating around on the internet about looks maxing. But you're always maxing for something. A man must have a quest is a great quote that I heard. So you could be, are you money maxing? Are you status maxing? Are you fitness maxing? Are you relationship maxing? What is it for you? And this thing just basically means if you're money maxing, which I was money maxing for like a couple of years and, temporarily lost my relationship and stuff because of it. And it's basically just that's all you're focused on is you're just I want to build this business to this certain point. I want to get a certain amount of money saved. And I just do not care what bridges I burn in my path to achieving this. That's money maxing. Now, status maxing might be you don't care whose feelings you hurt. You just want to achieve this high level of social status within a certain niche. Fitness maxing, okay? Maybe you're on a pursuit to lose weight, gain muscle, whatever. Relationship maxing, if you value your relationship with your significant other, or with friends or whatever, it might mean that you can't money max or, fitness max as much. So the point is everyone's maxing for something. So figure out what you're maxing for. And getting what you want is simple and it's straightforward, but it is not easy. It's going to suck. So I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse here, but no matter what you max for, it's going to suck. So you're probably right now thinking about this thing you want, whether it's a business goal or some life goal or whatever, and you're probably feeling pretty great right now. But once this motivation fades, all you have left is discipline and your ability to withstand just heaps and heaps of suffering and pain. Okay? That's all you have left. And there's a good quote that I heard that says, motivation fades, but discipline remains. Okay? So I see it all the time, with people setting, goals for a certain amount of fishing charters they want to run in a year, the people I work with, and they get super excited about it. And then a couple weeks goes by, motivation fades, and then they just, they give up basically. So you see it all the time too. I'm pretty sure there's statistics published on it, gym memberships. Everybody signs up at January 1st. It's their New Year's resolution because they're motivated. And then, February rolls around, motivation starts to fade, and if they don't have discipline, they quit. So really, motivation doesn't matter. It's discipline that you're after. All right? And along the way, you'll have some good moments, and it'll be a fun story to tell looking back on, sure. But it is not going to be fun when you're going through it. All right? I can tell you that much. And things are about to get really, really ugly for you because the universe is going to, or God, or whatever you want to say, is going to test you. And you're going to have to withstand something called the trial by fire. Because God or the universe is basically saying, all right, man, you want this epic life? What are you willing to give me for it? And the only bargaining chip that you have is pain and suffering. That's the only way that you can pay God and the universe is through pain and suffering. All right? And if you think about it, you just pulled your goal out of thin air. All right? This thing didn't exist. So now you have to bring it into existence. And in case you didn't know, bringing things into existence that are not already currently reality is pretty difficult, all right? Which is why the path to success is paved with fire. And you better be ready to walk it, every single day. And just so you know, you can step off the path at any point if you want. No one's forcing you to take the path. You just have to be okay with not growing anymore. So I'll put it into a fitness, context because everyone understands that, and that's an easy analogy. But if you want to gain muscle, you must face resistance. And if you get to a point where you're happy with your physique and you don't want to gain any more muscle or lose any more fat, it takes much less work and pain to continue maintaining. It's the getting there that's hard, okay? So you can step off the path at any point. I'm not saying you have to shoot for the stars here. Just understand what your goal is, and then when you get there, you can totally be cool and content, all right? And some people will want to keep going, and that's fine, all right? Just know that. Now, but as long as you want to be growing, you have to be going through pain. All right, so that's it. That's my spiel on that. Now, think about it in terms of you can't just sit there curling 2-pound weights expecting to see results, all right? You're like, oh yeah, I don't know why I'm not building muscle. I'm curling 2-pound weights. Well, obviously, it's way too easy. You need to reach for the 20, 30, 40-pound weights to the point where you're like, man, I don't know if I can really do 3 sets of 10 with this much weight because it's going to hurt. All right, then you do it, and then after your workout, you feel tired and lightheaded, and maybe you even feel like you're gonna throw up, and That's the trial by fire to get the body you want. It's the price you have to pay, and it's no different with building a business, being successful, or pretty much anything that I've noticed in life. Anything that I've achieved has been a result of going through the trial by fire, and it sucks. But the thing is once you get there, you don't have to suffer as much to maintain. You know what I'm saying? So like, as long as you want to grow, you have to be going through pain. That's the price. That's the price of growth. And the whole reason, the reason people want a six-pack is because it's hard to achieve. And the reason people celebrate when they've been married for 30 years is because you have to go through a lot of pain to withstand the trial by fire of marriage for that long. All right? And if it was easy, everyone would do it. And then having a six-pack or staying in a long-term relationship or building a successful business wouldn't be impressive. All right? Now, just to be clear, I'm not talking about unhealthy pain like breaking a bone or, the death of a loved one. I'm talking about, healthy, becoming, productive pain here. The funny thing is, you get used to suffering after a while, and a life without it seems weird. You start to miss it, and you kind of find something new to work on. You see this happen all the time with people who retire, and then they start picking up side gigs. They work all this time thinking that all this free time and freedom and not having to do anything to contribute to society is going to be amazing. And then they get there, and then they realize they miss the suffering. All right. And next time, when you have a choice between two things, once you have one, you'll want the other until you actually get it. Then once you get that thing, you will instantly want the other thing back again. So you might as well just tell yourself, I just choose to never be happy. You might as well just tell yourself that right now. Because I'm telling you, I've noticed in multiple different things. You have a path that's an either or. Do I get in a relationship? Do I stay single? Do I start a business? Do I stay unemployed? Whatever it is, okay? You will want the other thing until you get it. Then you'll want the other thing back again, and it's a never-ending loop, all right? So you might as well just say you choose to be unhappy. And the hardest thing of all is being able to honestly say, I have enough. And I'm not there yet. I have a vision board of, plenty of things I still want to achieve, but I made a promise to myself that once I do achieve that vision board, I'm going to try to achieve the hardest thing of all, which is contentment. And, obviously still doing things to grow. I don't mean just sitting around and doing nothing all day, but I mean chilling out a little bit. I sacrificed my late teens and, early 20s to basically, be able to hopefully kind of, live an abnormal life for the rest of my life. So basically, yeah, it's kind of at least my way of looking at it. Now, the thing is, you can build up your pain tolerance because hard work is like a muscle. And, some people can work harder than others. Just like, you can go in the gym and you could see somebody do, I'm drawing a blank out, whatever, call it, somebody could do 100 push-ups, easy peasy, and then the next guy might barely be able to do 10. Why is that? Well, he just, he's built up the muscle to do that. Now, this is a picture of me last year when I flew out to Los Angeles at the school headquarters with the CEO of Skool, Sam Ovens. All right. And what I learned from this experience was that, these people here, all right, they have worked their work muscle, their pain tolerance. All right. It was ridiculous. All right. I come from a pretty hardworking family. There's lots of, hardworking blue collar people in our town. And I kind of thought I knew what hard work looked like, but man, getting out here, I'm pretty sure that Sam might be a billionaire by now, with a B, an actual legitimate billionaire. I'm not sure on that, but I've heard things through the grapevine that I think he's there. And if he's not, with Skool, he's going to be there within the next couple of years. But my point is, to get to that level, I could not believe it. He'd literally be there from 6 in the morning to 10 at night, 16 hours. And it's not just flopping around, kind of doing some work or whatever. I'm talking legit, dedicated, locked in work. And I know because I was sitting there next to him and the other people in the team. And it was just ridiculous. I kind of worked for 7, 8 hours, and then my brain was getting tired. I was getting tired of looking at the computer screen. My mind just kind of felt fatigued, and I was ready to do something else. And then I look around, wow, these guys aren't even halfway through the day yet, and they're still fully locked in. So my point is work is a muscle, and learning to work hard is a skill that you build up over time. Now, one of the biggest things is kind of you have to remove the time frame from your goals, man. Okay? Like I fell down this trap. I see lots of other people fall down this trap, and it's like you have to believe that you will get there eventually. But don't try to guess when, because if you think it's going to take 6 months, that means you think you're setting this expectation in your mind that you're only going to have to go through 6 months of pain. And then when the 6 month comes and you're only halfway or a third of the way there, you're going to get, all depressed and that's when people quit and give up. So don't do that. Set a goal, but remove the time frame. Just believe you'll get there eventually. Now, physical pain is your body telling you there's something actually wrong. All right, like if you're, working out or whatever, like your tissues are breaking down and your body's saying, hey man, like put it down, put this weight down, like in extreme circumstances, like this could lead to death. And, obviously working out probably isn't going to lead to death, but your body likes to have a lot of margin before you die. So that's physical pain. Your body's telling you something's actually wrong. But the interesting thing with mental pain is it's all make-believe. It's in your head, all right? And to evolve into the kind of person that could achieve what you want, your current self has to go into a, kickbox, fight to the death match with your future self, with your becoming self, all right? Because your goal that you set for yourself, that you pulled out of thin air, threatens the survival of your current self, all right? Think of that. That part of you doesn't want you to die, all right? It would be like if you cornered a wild animal, all right? It doesn't want to die. So of course, your current self is going to, pull up resistance, and it has all sorts of weapons, all right? Your current self is going to pull up a kitchen knife, it's going to pull out a pistol, it's going to pull out a machete, and it's going to try to get you to not do the work because it wants to stay comfortable and just cope and survive. But the thing is, if you want to become a new version of yourself, you have to pull a bigger weapon, all right? So your current self pulls a kitchen knife, you pull a machete. Then, your current self pulls a pistol, you pull a machine gun, all right? You have to keep pulling a bigger weapon. And the thing is that these weapons are kind of a metaphor for all the excuses that you think of to not do the work, all right? And the only way that you can beat your current self to become the person you want is through the work, because the work wins every single time if you just do it, all right? And your current self knows that, which is why it will do everything in its power to make you not do the work. Avoiding the work means not doing what you know you should be doing, regardless of how many legitimate excuses you have to not do it. And notice I said legitimate excuses, all right? I'm not saying that you're making stuff up, even though you kind of are, but you'll say things like, I can't do the work because insert excuse. I can't reach out to people today because, whatever. Because it's, my cousin's birthday, because it's Sunday and I take Sundays off, because, I got to go, do this thing, because I got up early this morning, because, I don't have my work set up with me. Whatever it is, you're going to insert an excuse. It will happen. All right? You will come up with any excuse to not do the work. And in order to hit my goal for Captain Skool, I had to set a goal to do outreach every single day for 4 months straight. Never took a day off, okay? I did at least one outreach every day for almost 4 months straight, all right? And some days it was 1, some days it was 10, some days it was 50, but at least one. I never missed a day. And there were lots of reasons. I had plenty of legit excuses to not do the work, but I still did it every day until I hit my goal, okay? And I didn't know how long it was gonna take. I would have done it for a year, 2 years, indefinitely until I hit my goal. I just knew I had to do it until then. So I didn't say I'm gonna do this every day for 4 months. I said I'm gonna do it every day until I hit my goal. And then once you get there, you can ease off the gas a little bit and chill out for a little bit if that's what you want. Or you can keep going through pain and keep growing, okay? But anyways, these were excuses that I had during the time to not do the work. Holidays, okay? During this 4-month period, we had Thanksgiving, we had Christmas, okay? I could have easily said, no one would have blamed me if I said, hey, I'm gonna take the day off because it's Christmas. No one would have blamed me. They would have been, dude, totally, yeah, for sure, take it off. But nope, still did cold outreach. Still went through the pain on Christmas Day, okay? Vacation, went on like a 7-day vacation, a week-long vacation to Florida. Easily could have been like, yeah, I'm taking a vacation. I'm not gonna do it. Nope, outreach every single day on vacation. It was my birthday. All right, I turned 22 at the end of December. I could have said, it's my birthday, I'm taking the day off. Nope, still did it on my birthday, okay? Breakup, I went through a brutal, breakup. I could have easily just been, I was like legitimately sad for like weeks after. I could have easily just kind of like gave up, not been in the, mood to do it or whatever, but nope, still did outreach every single day. Death of a family member, like somebody who was, very close to me in, my family, died. I could have been like, oh, well, this person died, like I'm gonna take a couple days. Nope, still did outreach. And I know that might seem ridiculous to people because all of these are legitimate excuses that pretty much no one would blame you if you took the day off. But I'm telling you, it just depends on how important your goal is. If this thing that you're saying you want is actually important to you, you have to go through a lot of pain and, you just have to do the work, okay? And for me, the hard work was cold calls and cold outreach, but for you, it might be something different, and you probably know in your head it's that thing that you really don't want to do. That's probably the thing you have to do. So, but that's just what you got to do to get to where you want to go, all right? And you'll clean your room, you'll make spreadsheets, you'll hire accountants, you'll do anything that is not what you actually need to be doing. And this is called warped priorities. Happens all the time, all right? People say like, oh, outreach isn't really my thing. I prefer to let people come to me. What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? The situation that you're currently in demands that of you. And like I said, it might not be outreach, it might be something else. But if you're like, oh yeah, like I'm not really into like, whatever the thing is. I'm not really into, putting out signs to advertise my business or hand out business cards or whatever. I'm not really into that. I let people come to me. What? You set this goal for yourself and you said you want it and you're not willing to do the work? Like what? There's only two things, all right? Either you don't know what to do, like you just don't have the knowledge, you have no idea what to do, or you're just not doing it, all right? And the thing is if you know what to do, but you still aren't doing it, you are basically saying you are above the work. And nobody is above the work if that's what needs to be done. And remember, it only needs to be done because you set this arbitrary goal for yourself, trying to pull this thing out of thin air, all right? But also, back to the point earlier where I said, do you really want an easy life? And the answer is probably no. Like, what, do you want to get to the end of your life and look back and be like, yeah, I overcame no adversity and everything was just handed to me on a silver platter and I went through no challenges. Life was easy. Like, is that what you want to say? Probably not. Because what good is a hero without a villain? Like, Superman fighting this, mythical creature or whatever. Like, imagine a knight and a dragon. You got the princess, the knight, and the dragon. Like, what good is the knight without the dragon? Imagine if the knight could just stroll down to the cave, pick up the princess, and ride back to the village without having to slay the dragon. Well, anyone could do that. Anyone could hop on their horse and ride down and, throw the princess on the back. What the heck is the point, all right? The point of what makes it, a hero is the fact that there is a villain, all right? And the villain is pain, but you have to learn to love the pain, okay? You can stop at any point. I talked about this earlier. You can get off the path at any time. But if you want to level up and ascend, you have to go through more pain because the pain is the path, all right? So there's this little picture, if you're familiar with Minecraft, you are Steve and, in the cave would be like your goal. So think of your goal as in the cave. And look there's all these, you got the creepers and the spiders and the skeletons and the zombies and all these things that are standing at the cave. And it's going to be hard. You're going in there with your shield and your sword and you're going to have to slay all of these creatures. And, it is going to suck and it's going to hurt. But in order to go in that cave to get what you want, you have to go through this fight, okay? You have to do it. Now, you could just say, nah, man, I'm just going to chill out here in the field. Like, I don't really need to go in that cave. And that's fine. Just don't sit here and say that, oh, I wish I could get in the cave. I really want to go in the cave if you're not willing to face these creepers and dragons and spiders and skeletons, okay? Because the pain is the path. And the only way to get into that cave, which is a metaphor basically for getting your goal, is you have to go through and fight, okay? Now, I know that was kind of a big rant. So how do you actually do the work? All right, how do you actually do the work? Well, do a random cold call right now. Do an actual random cold call. And now look at your brain and, really observe all of the legitimate excuses that your brain just gave you. All right, like just look at all of the legitimate excuses that your brain just gave you. It's probably thinking like, oh, well, my family's around, like whatever, whatever your thing is, there's a reason. That is cope. You just experienced it. So I just forced you to experience exactly what I'm talking about. You came up with an excuse, okay? Because the truth is there's no reason you can't do a cold call right now. I don't care if you have a business or not, or if you know, whatever the thing is, all right? I do not care. Just call a business and say, hey, I'm looking to sell you some marketing services. Even if you don't do it, like, you're not actually you're not going to collect payment from them. It's just the fact that you need to get uncomfortable and learn to go through pain to do it. All right. And if you can't do this right now, like if you can't do a cold call while you're at the height of understanding why going through pain is so important to achieve your goals, then maybe you should just not want to achieve your goal. Just be happy with where you're at right now and just give up. Okay? Because if you can't go through the pain and do this right now while you're at the height of your awareness of why you need to experience pain, you're going to forget about it in a couple days and you're just not going to do it anyways. So might as well just save yourself some time. All right. And you know what? I will just go ahead and I'm going to prove to you, like, I'm just not some hypocrite here. Like, even though I've already done this stuff 1,000 times, or maybe not 1,000, but hundreds of cold calls, let's just, stick with me. I'll do a cold call right now, just prove to you. So let's look up a fishing guide in fishing charters in, I don't know, where do we want to go? Let's do Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I literally just picked this. Like, I'm literally randomly just looking this up right now. All right, I'm just showing you that, like, it's not that big of a deal. You can just pick up, and the problem is I've called so many of these people already that I need to make sure that I didn't already call them. So yeah, feel free to maybe skip ahead a little bit in the video because I'm not going to edit this out. I want it to be legit. So let's see, who do we got here? All right, everybody has a bunch of reviews. So this is not an ideal business for me to be calling, just to be clear, but I'm gonna call them anyways, just because I need to go through the pain and get rejected. And the point is, I literally don't even really know what I'm gonna, like, I don't have a script that I'm looking at right now. I just know, I'm gonna pitch my service. That's it. So let's call them.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? How you doing?
Hey, this is the fishing charter, right?
Yep, yep.
Oh, okay. Do you got a minute, or did I catch you at a bad time?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a minute, or did I catch you at a bad time?
I'm with customers, but I'm on my way. Hold on one second, let me come in.
All right, he said that he was gonna call back, so we'll see. The point is, all right, like, I would have just pitched him. If he calls back while we're doing this video, I will answer and I will, pitch him. And I don't care if I get brutally rejected. But the point is, you just gotta get on the phone and be willing to, face some pain. All right, just is what it is. Anyways, now on with the video. Pain equals resistance times effort. All right. Oh wait, our guy is calling us back. Ready? Let's answer. Hello, this is Nate.
Yeah, what's up, bud?
Oh yeah, hey.
I was coming through the inlet here. It was a little sloppy. All right, what's up, bud?
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, look, I know this is kind of like a little bit random here, but I actually run my own fishing charter business up in Michigan, and I started up a free online group to try to help other captains get more bookings. So I didn't know if you might be interested or if you already got your hands full.
What is it that you started?
It's just an online group, kind of like a Facebook group. I'm just trying to spread the word.
No, I appreciate it.
All right, no worries, man. Later. Bye. See? Boom. Rejected. It's not the end of the world. I just offered him something, and he said no. Get over it. Get over it. All right? Pain equals resistance times effort. All right? So the reason I was in pain, which I was in, when I first started doing cold calls, I was in way more pain. Like, that wasn't that painful because I've done it a lot. But pain happens when resistance meets effort. Okay? So this equation represents, exactly what just happened with that cold call. And a good way to know if you're growing is if you're in pain, all right? And the more pain you put yourself through, the faster you can get what you want. The most successful people at anything have learned to love the pain. Like if you ask anyone who goes to the gym regularly and stuff, they all say, I love going. And you're like, why? Because it hurts. And they're like, I don't know, I just like it. Okay, so learn to love the pain. And you do have limits, so you need to allow yourself to rest and recover because your body can nuke. Your body can nuke you. Like I talked earlier about, pulling a sword and a kitchen knife. Like your body can nuke you. And I've pushed myself to the limits a few times, like where I have insomnia and like can't sleep at night because you're just like up, like thinking because you've, literally put yourself into a fight or flight stage. Like that's how you know when you've pushed it far and you have to take a break. But that only happens like after days and days and days of like 12 hours of like just grinding, okay? So the general can't discipline the soldier 24/7 or else the soldier might shoot the general. But it's still the general's job to let the soldier know who's boss, all right? And that's the best analogy that I can think of it is the general is your mind and the soldier is your body. And your mind has to tell your body what to do because your mind is the boss and it probably knows what you need to do. But the soldier is going to try to slack off, come up with excuses to not do the work, but you still have to push it and let it know who's boss. But you can't push it too far or else it'll nuke you. So it's kind of, a little bit of a weird dynamic there. But just think of pain as, and this is kind of like, I'm wrapping it up here with this whole idea, which this will really hopefully just tie the whole lesson together. But think of pain as the currency you use to negotiate and trade with the universe. The more productive pain you have in your past, the more bargaining power you have to buy what you want. This is called the bank of suffering. Okay? And like it or not, inside this bank, everyone has an account balance. If you're faced with something hard and you avoid it, $2 gets deducted from your account. If you're faced with something hard and you take the painful path by doing the work, like I just did that cold call, then basically, one pain dollar gets added to my account at the bank of suffering. And now you notice that when you avoid the work, double the amount of dollars gets deducted than when you do the work. You get like penalized for not doing it, all right? So just focus on earning pain dollars. Just every day, try to earn pain dollars. And like that cold call that I just made didn't result in any money, but I still made a pain dollar and I increased my balance inside the bank of suffering, all right? And eventually you'll be able to do a currency swap into real money to get what you want. And I know that that's like a really abstract idea, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. Like if you just keep suffering and pain, and again, I'm not talking about breaking your bone or physical pain. I'm talking about, like a cold call, things like that, like productive pain. If you just keep stacking up those pain dollars, you will be able to, do a currency swap and swap pain dollars for real, spendable money, to get what you want and to be able to live your life. So this is where we are going to end now. And I think this quote's a great way to end it. To get what you want, you must deserve what you want. The world is not yet a crazy enough place to reward a whole bunch of undeserving people. And that was a quote by Charlie Munger, which was Warren Buffett's business partner, who was very, very successful, and he died a year or two ago. But that is basically the entire summary of everything. And you just have to do the work. Like all of this stuff, like all of these analogies and pictures and different things that I've shown you, and like this is just a in-depth way for me to say, do the work. Like I'm just gonna say it. Do the work, 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 do the work. Okay. And another one of my favorite sayings is you can't lose if you don't quit. All right. Like this is the stuff here, guys. All right. Like I said, you might need to please watch this video a couple times if you're serious about understanding this stuff, because this is how you get anything. This is how you get anything. This is I learned this stuff from people who are making literally tens of millions of dollars, and I used it to achieve goals that are much, much smaller than that. But my point is this stuff works no matter what level of things you're trying to achieve. All right. So if we scroll all the way back up here, like these are the peanut butter and jelly things that I'm trying to help you understand. Right here, okay? Quantum iteration. Like this is your business. Look at this picture, snapshot in your brain, write it out if you're serious about it. This is your business, quantum iteration. All you have to do is iterate these variables, okay? That's, the peanut butter. And then the jelly is none of that quantum iteration stuff matters if you don't take, go through the pain and actually do the work to swap out the variables in order to get the outcome you want. All right. So then the jelly part of the peanut butter and jelly is going through the trial by fire. So when you put those two things together, you get the pain sandwich, basically. And the whole idea of this whole trial by fire one is just do the work. Okay. So That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do the work, do the work, do the work, do the work.